So today we're in the literature text learning target. We are going to look at essential question number 1, how do readers know what to believe? Essential question number 2, how do strategic readers create meaning from text? And number 4, what is literary text really about? As we look through this, we are going to participate in a close reading of The People Could Fly. Tomorrow you will have a open book quiz on The People Could Fly, but we're going to close read prior to that. So in the Actively Learn program, I have provided you with an excerpt of The People Could Fly. Remember, a close reading is going back and rereading a text to see what the text says, as well as how the text says it and why the text matters. Instead of 3 different sections or questions on this close reading, there will be 4 different questions to answer. There's 1 question in phase 1, 2 questions in phase 2, and 1 question in phase 3. Phase 1 is the easiest phase. It's where you're reading for what we'll call the gist, or to summarize what the text is saying. So I want you to read over the section. You're not going to highlight anything. You're just going to focus on what is happening and being able to explain the gist of the text. After you read over it and figure out at the beginning, middle, and end what is happening, I want you to answer the question, what's happening in the excerpt, by writing your summary for phase 1. This focuses in on learning target number 5, to make an objective summary of the text. Remember, make sure you're focusing and surrounding your summary around the conflicts, because that's how literary pieces do. And remember, we don't include our opinions of the text. We just make sure we're looking at the plot elements and focusing on making sure we explain the conflict within our summary of the section of the text. In phase 2 of this close reading, we're going to focus on 2 different sections. First section of phase 2 is to reread the section, this time focusing on highlighting examples of figurative language found in the paragraphs. I want you to highlight as many as you can find and margin note the type of figurative language as your margin note for your highlight. Then discuss what you've highlighted as figurative language elements and decide as a group to answer the question, how does the author use the figurative language in each paragraph? What is the effect of using the figurative language? So make sure you are able to explain your answer to that question. I want you to explain your answer by beginning with one of the following. By beginning with, the author uses, and then state the type of figurative language to do what? And pick one of the following. Is it to reveal something, to show something, to imply or hint at something, to emphasize something, to suggest something, to indicate something? Maybe it's to foreshadow, which is also meaning to hint at something to come in the future, or to highlight something within the text. So make sure you pick one. Some will work and some actually are not applicable. So don't think that you could just pick any of them and make a response. Sometimes there are correct answers and sometimes there are not correct answers. This one ties into learning target number 11, to determine how the author uses the meaning of words or phrases, including figurative and connotative meanings in a text. So remember, you have to determine how the author uses that figurative language in the text. Maybe it's to, as I've said, one of these areas will tie in. This also focuses in on your understanding of what figurative language is. So it focuses on learning target number 18, to interpret figurative language in the text. So we have multiple types of figurative language, such as similes, metaphors, hyperboles, personification, or symbolism. Simile is a comparison using like or as. Metaphor, comparing two unlike things. Hyperbole is an extreme exaggeration. Personifications, giving human qualities to something non-human. And a symbol is an object that represents something bigger. Please make sure to know that not all will be used in the piece, but if you spot some sort of figurative language, make sure that you are able to answer the question by figuring out how the author uses that figurative language, for what purpose, by beginning with one of these listed elements. The next layer of our close read is still in phase 2 because we're still focusing on how. And for this reading, we're looking at how does the author develop the point of view of the narrator throughout the folktale. So as we look at point of view, we are going to make sure that we refer to point of view as perspective, not just is it first, second, or third. When we talk about point of view, we are referring to perspective. This ties into learning target number 7. To analyze how the author develops the points of view of different characters, in this case, the narrator of the text. So obviously the text can be written in first, second, or third person point of view. Within this piece, it hops between first and second point of view throughout, and third as well. But the most important part is the how they use the point of view, how they develop that perspective. In other words, look closely at the specific features of the text that the author uses to show and change and grow the perspective of our narrator. When we answer this one, we want to look at what is that. We have to first think, what is that particular text component? Is it the author's use of dialogue? Is it the author? Does that develop the point of view of the characters? For the narrator, is it the author's use of specific word choice, or is it like the dialect, the sound that you hear, that tonage coming off the page? Whatever it might be, you need to make sure that you pick a specific part or feature and explain by using one of these terms. The author develops a point of view by including maybe dialogue, by describing a specific scene, by emphasizing the dialect, by explaining something, by reflecting on. That would definitely be for a narrator, because the narrator through their narration can reflect on different aspects. So maybe that one could be used for this one since we're looking at the narrator. But remember, not all the choices will fit in. So you need to pick the correct option that works. Sometimes all options could be explained and incorrect. Some options, not all of them are going to work for you. The last section is our third phase of reading. This is focusing and connecting to theme, but we're going to look at the interaction between character and theme. So we're looking at Toby and the character of Toby. And Toby's mentioned throughout this section, and we want to talk about how does the characterization of Toby shape the theme. Remember, when we talk about characterization, we're talking personality traits of characters. So what personality trait of Toby helps to shape the message of the piece? To answer this, we must understand what is the message of the piece, as well as what is a particular personality trait of Toby that helps to show the message of the piece. This one ties into learning target number 6, to analyze how particular elements of the story, drama, or poem interact. Remember, in those notes I've given you before, it says to look closely at how different things affect each other in writing. We said that characterization means the specific personality trait of the character. This is the first time we're looking at how a personality trait of a character does help to shape the message of the piece. And Toby does shape the message of the piece in The People Could Fly. So can you figure out how his personality helps to showcase and shape the message of this piece? That's what you have to do to answer the phase 3 question. So go ahead and get working on all 3 phases of this close reading of the text.